This is Zettelcast, brought to you by readers, writers, thinkers, and teachers from LiLLiPub, along with our partners in thought, our Zettelkastens. In this show, we share discoveries that our Zettelkastens have shown us.
There you go.
And compare notes on how we're using this marvelous invention in our creative work. Thank you for joining us.
All right, Book. Do it again.
All right.
Episode 42. Mostly Harmless.
Welcome to the Zettelcast. This is episode number 42, and I am Mel Jeffcoat. And in honor of the number 42 that we have today, we are going to go with a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy themed show. So the first question, how we relate this to the Zettelkasten, is 42 is the answer to life, the universe, and everything. But what is the question? So do you keep track of questions in your Zettelkasten? Do you have a formal review process, or just trust your index to resurface them? Or do you have some other method? What about your answers? Do you handle ideas that make you rethink a card, or how do you handle ideas that make you rethink a card that you already made?
All good. Anybody want to start?
Nobody's jumping in. I'd be happy to. All right.
Go for it.
Well, I do questions. I've changed the way I do questions over time. I'm on my third method. So my first method was just to keep a list on a file card and have it in the front of my work box. And that worked kind of okay, but the problem with that is that pretty soon it becomes invisible. If it's always there, you never look at it. So then my second method was to create regular Zettelkasten cards, but the problem with that is they just disappear. And then, like Mel said, you have to rely on your index. So since creating my creativity deck, which is a recent phenomenon, I have added to that my ponder section, which is now where I keep my questions that I'm working on. And so every time I pick up my creativity deck, which I do all the time, and just love having all of these different things that I can research and look at that help me think of things in different ways, I also have right there my questions. And I can thumb through them and see if I'm making any progress. Now, questions are really important to me because I've already used them to answer a number of things. And in fact, my whole character trait schema came as a result of pondering a question that I pondered from August to April. I pondered it, and then from April to June, it took shape. So I really love those questions. I think they're really important.
Nice.
That's the answer to the first part.
Well, I can dovetail off of that because mine is similar. I started with a general area. As you know, my note box, independent of my Zettelkasten for Writers book, mine's devoted entirely to my novel. So early on, I just had a general section up front, and it was primarily plot related questions, like how do I get this person over to there or whatever. And what I found is the questions piled up pretty quickly, and then it was a chaos box, and then it was a lost box, and it was bad. So I knew I had to sort them somehow. So in my mind, the thing that made sense was to sort them by character. And that means to whom is it relevant, and that's where they go. So at the front of each character set of development cards, the questions that I need to answer about them, whether it's their backstory, it's something I haven't figured out about them yet, whatever, those just go in the front of that character. And then I do have in my plot box, again in the very front, a section of things that I haven't figured out yet that are maybe minor plot points, or since book one is 95% written, a lot of it has to do with how am I going to get from book one to book two. So it's, if I left this character here, How do I get them over to there so that there's continuity? So mine are primarily within the section that I think they're relevant to, either character or plot. And then on the other side of the house, in my nonfiction book, again, the questions got out of control really quickly as I started asking myself, well, what about this? And how do you do that? And how do I include this? And so those got indexed by, again, I think of my nonfiction book as a fiction book with characters, and the characters are the ideas that move around in it. And so that's where I stuck them. Whichever chapter or subsection that they're relevant to, they go in that character section, because I know that I need to answer that at some point or not. I mean, what I'm teaching myself in real time is I don't have to answer everything. This book will never be done, and that's okay, because I have other avenues that I can explore those unanswered questions. I don't have to pack everything into a 48 volume encyclopedia. So some of them I just have to trust that it's okay to not answer them.
Well, for me, I have, so I'm evolving a kind of a hierarchy of questions. Some of them are really, deep and existential, and some of them are, much more practical. And so where I ask each one is kind of different. So starting with the existential one, this question, not that I can offer the answer. You will hear why. But this question was really bothering me. And that is, how do timelessness and music coexist?
Oh.
Wow.
Right?
And you have 48,000 cards in there.
Well, I started, this was the first card that I added in a section that was about, I think it was inspired by Haley Renee's book.
Uh-huh.
And I just put it as a subject for meditation. Not that I have really legitimately sat and meditated. I mostly just went. But it did lead me, because it bothered me so much, and I had written it down, and I, in talking to a few people where I felt like, can I ask you this question? Would you, even just, I would be listening to somebody who talks on YouTube, and I think maybe that's somebody I could ask that question. And then I thought of somebody that I legitimately could and should ask, and that person is now a teacher of mine. So
Nice.
that was fortuitous. And in the meantime, I have found some solace in my research that helps me figure out a different way of framing that. So it doesn't feel as deeply unanswerable or actually personally threatening. I would say my problem with it is that it felt personally threatening. Because if I go deep into an experience of timelessness, what will happen to my musical self? That was the real worry. And fortunately, the person the person who's now a teacher of mine, he teased my real worry out of me. And he was able to say, I know what you're asking about, and you do not need to worry about that. And that was, who am I going to trust? I'm going to trust this guy.
Yeah.
And there were some other things that helped me figure out a different way of reframing it. So it's settling down into a more normal kind of question. So that's my highest level. All my other questions are coming about through the writing of the Roanoke story. And so I've got different ways, and they're not particularly systematic, but it's more like having a place to put the card and a way to ensure that I will stumble upon it again without trusting myself to be disciplined. So I forget whether I forget whether um, talked about this on the podcast or not, but I have created a zero section. So 5 is my Roanoke project, and I have .1 for characters and .2 for world, etc. And I created a zero section, and it's called "Have you seen these missing cards?" And it's my list of all the stuff that cards don't exist for yet that damn well ought to.
It's your milk carton section.
It is. It is. And so just having
Nice.
that and knowing I got a question and I don't need to go down that rabbit hole. I can file it. And then I know that I can't let these get too big, but as I add something to the list, I'll see what else is on the list, and that starts to come together. And so, for example, I've been asking myself, Chris, we've got this love interest, Chris. Was he just, sprouted out of a bush, or does he have parents? And I now know their names and something about a couple of them. So that kind of thought, I'm just leaving little reminders for myself. And it all goes down to some of my questions are just questions. And the tagline is a question. And so I will run into that in the index. And then the other thing that I do is a lot of times my ideas at certain, they just come out very harebrained. And I will use the purple pen, the personal reaction purple pen, to ask some clarifying questions to try to bring it back to, let's get out of the woo-woo, Julianne, and back into.
Nice.
So that's how that's working for me, and it's working delightfully. I feel like I'm getting, well, I get, every answer raises more questions, but that's a great problem to have in writing a story.
Awesome. Well, I trust to the index to resurface my questions at this point, because what I've been doing is if I'm making main cards and a question occurs to me, it either goes onto its own card, or if it's relevant, I put it on that card. But the question is the tagline, and so that can bring it back theoretically. We'll see. I am considering, but I haven't tried implementing it yet, also setting up a questions collective basically in the index. I think that could be useful. It could also grow out of control really fast. So it might have to be subdivided, questions about this, questions about that. And, I already have something similar to that with my book lists, because I've got book lists in my index, and they're all separated by topic or genre, books about chess and books about architecture, et cetera, just things that I've run across that look interesting, but I'm not ready to get into just yet. So I haven't quite pulled the trigger, but I think I probably will build a question section in the index. Stepping into the second part of the question, I know I'm kind of going out of turn here, but it flows. I've started adding, when I'm arguing with a previous card, taking a different side, I've added the word contra at the beginning of my tagline. And so I've got a whole contra card in the index, so it's going to be multiple cards soon, which just keeps track of places where I'm arguing with somebody. Maybe I'm arguing with my previous self. Maybe I'm taking a devil's advocate position. Maybe, maybe it's all theoretical. I don't actually believe any of them, but I'm just trying out the different things. This is a proposition. What can I say on the other side of it? So I'm using the contra tag essentially to keep track of those. So I think that will be very interesting once it starts to really fill in with arguments that aren't all about the same thing. Lots of different kinds of arguments. Maybe I'll start to see some patterns there, which could be very interesting.
I love that idea.
Yeah, mine is very similar. I don't flag them, but I include them in the conversation. So I'm on alert for when my new card is looking for what conversation it wants to join. If there's a controversy there, that's like a magnet for the card. It's like, yeah, I want to get in on that one. And so it will go on the directory card with the rest of the conversation. But I like the idea of flagging it. And, maybe I'll just I underline keywords in blue. Maybe if it's a contra card, I'll just underline the keywords in red to just identify the fact that, oh, ho, we got sparks flying now.
Nice.
I have a lot in my index already that's about questions, but it's about questions. It's not questions themselves. It's about the power of questions and asking good questions and that sort of thing. So uh, I love this contra thing. I could see
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Very Lillian.
Mhm.
Yep.
Hmm.
And it fits in with my night job, where I read legal documents, and when they're citing various legal cases, one of the things that they might say is, see this case contra this case. This case actually says something
Right.
different.
Oh.
Um,
Oh, okay.
so yeah, definitely a little bit of legal jargon there.
Oh, that's good. I also have a question. I I encourage my writers to build a dialogue section, and that might have conversations in it, it might have monologues, it might just have a thought that, something that was interesting, and there's a question section in there. So the way that I use that, which is kind of different than anything else, is if characters are interacting and I need a way to get something out of character B by character A, sometimes I'll just go look at this collection of questions. I probably got 40 or 50 of them in there. And it's things that are either phrased in a way that I find interesting, or maybe they're written in a particular character's voice. Um, like my main male character is from Oklahoma, and there's a lot of things like, well, what'd you do that for? Just stuff that as soon as I read it, branches talking in my head. So sometimes I use those as prompts just to get me down that road to help get a scene going. So that's the only other thing I would say that I do a little differently with questions.
Wow. You just sparked something in me. I got to grab a card and write it down because that's my nature. I can't help myself. But the idea of cultural questions that different societies will ask their children or ask each other different sets of questions. And
That's good.
that's new for me. I love it. I
Yeah.
want to capture it. I'm going to say
Can
E.G.
recommend a
Branch,
book for you
Steve
too.
Betrayal. I'm going to quote you here. What'd you do that for? Okay. Apologize for taking this time, but that's what I do. And that's why I have a Zettelcasting, because I have to have a place to put these.
Let me recommend a book for you because you don't have enough of them. This book
All right.
was a huge favorite a lot of these agile coaches that I got a chance to work with who came from all over at my place of employment. Now they've all, scattered into the winds. The book is called The Culture Map, and it's
Ooh.
by Aaron Meyer. And it helps you see lots of different kinds of cultural differences in the world right now.
Oh.
Um, and why, all the different ways, for example, that um, Japanese and uh, United States
Uh-huh.
Americans can completely misunderstand each other.
Ah,
The kinds of things that, of course you say this, of course you don't say that. And it's very systematic. She's pretty data oriented with this. Very helpful. I
oh,
think it's
very
probably
cool.
super helpful for a writer.
Well, I would, in terms of sources, I would also be interested in some of the sources that fed your question section on questions.
Yeah, yeah. I've got some good
Mm.
books on that. Yes.
Because obviously questions are a big part of my creativity ring. And right now, my most sympathetic, systematic ones are from Mel on the lulls questions. But,
Julianne, how would you categorize that book? Like, if I were making a bib card saying books on X, where would that go?
I think it's sociology.
Mm.
Works for me. Thank you.
see what we gain from each other?
I know.
The best. It's the best.
Well, does anybody have anything more they'd like to say about questions that or answers that might be revised with new information? Or shall we move on to the next question?
Well, I'll just say that sometimes I'll come across one of these harebrained cards and I will have some real um, allergic reaction.
Mm.
And I just let it stay there. I don't, I there have been plenty of times where it's like, toss this card. And I'll just leave it in there as a, little grain of sand.
Yeah.
A little bit of grit. You never do know when whatever seemed to make sense at the time comes back.
Ah,
Yes.
oh,
Yeah, I try to not get too crazy about repositioning things. That has turned out really badly for me twice, so I'm very careful about doing that. Instead, I trust where it is and index like a mad woman.
I'll add to that linking
Yeah.
because it's now a
Yes.
permanent part of my placing, which is starting to mean that just about every card I add is getting a directory card from the get-go
Yeah.
because it's so much fun to just be able to put down any card that tickled my, you know, brain funny bone or seemed odd or connected in any way. I am so free with that directory card to be able to just put the card, put the tagline. It might not be where it goes, but why not?
Yeah.
And it just, the conversations are just becoming so much more enriched.
Hmm.
Yeah, and there's ambiguity. A lot of times, I will have something that comes up as a bit of world and a sense of what part of the story might bring out that bit of world. But I don't, none of it is fully developed yet. And just choose a place and know you can link to the other.
Yeah, yeah.
It's yeah, the whole book is not gonna come together like a word outline.
No, you'll bore your readers.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the second topic is based off of one of the spaceships in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the Heart of Gold, which is powered by an infinite improbability drive, which generates infinite improbability, making it possible to instantaneously travel between any 2 points. But the side effect is a constant cloud of highly improbable events surrounding it, such as a missile turning into a whale flying through the air, or a bowl of petunias, and many other strange and hilarious things. So do you have any mechanisms or ways of working with your Zettelkasten to increase the odds of random ideas colliding? And do you have any fun examples?
Well, I'll go ahead because I just said it. So I'm just
Hmm.
gonna come back and revisit it and with a few words. It's those directory cards because they at the point in time when I'm placing the card and it just opens so many possible connections. I will find connections when I'm looking for the letter of the alphabet because I don't have a separate card for that keyword yet. And I'll find something that isn't even the keyword at all. It just happened to be there. And it shows up on the card. So this is what I just said.
Agreed. I find directory cards to be extremely helpful. Um, I prescribe for my writers a way of using them as a prompt system. So, let's say you're looking at different kinds of struggle. Maybe there's emotional, there's personal, there's cultural, and you're just going to list them on your directory card. And then behind that card, you're going to list those kinds of things that may impact a character, thoughts, ideas, whatever. I find that infinitely helpful because, again, if I know, okay, in this scene, I know I need this character to have this particular problem or reaction or whatever, and I'm stuck or I can't figure it out, I can go look at that set of challenges, if you will, and when I see them all together, my brain just automatically picks out, oh yeah, they need to have an argument, and then you just go write it. So that's probably the top one is many people know my main departure from the Shapirian system is I don't have an index that lives in note cards. My index lives in an 8.5 by 11 binder because I need to see as much real estate as I can at a glance. And so I would say for me, that's what I consider my second superpower is I can look at everything together. And I mean, stuff just starts jumping out and I can always find at least what I think is a line through to get the writing started. I may change it or trash it later, but at least I can get myself from point A to point B enough that I can continue with the writing. So I would have to say it's probably because of the way I set my index up. And then I use, I don't know that I have any right here, but because my index lives in a happy planner, I don't have any punched. It's a disk system. And so if I have a directory card that's got like 9 P things on it, I'm going to punch it and it's going to go right in front of the P tab. So all of the things that I've collected magpie style are put right up front and tabbed in before I ever get to the letter with all the things on it. So in that way, those kind of always jump right out at me if I've collected them.
You've talked about that system before, and I wonder, has anybody else yielded to the temptation to try that?
Kathleen did her book. She did her novel that way.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, well, I have to confess, I purchased the tabs and I hole punched them for the Happy Planner, and they are at this moment all blank. And that challenge for me is that I am so glued to my taglines that I can't imagine listing taglines on unlined paper because
Oh.
I'll be sitting there with a ruler drawing
Ah.
lines.
Yeah.
At which point I might as well just grab the cards. And for me, I grab the cards when I want a section. I just grab the whole section and read through. So they are all together. They're as much all
Yeah.
together as if they were on a page. But so I was gonna try it, so not quite.
I'm quite tempted because my process of indexing now, I do it in the evening or in, sitting with my husband time.
Uh-huh.
And the box that contains what I'm indexing, it's usually coming from 2 boxes. One is This is my Roanoke box. This is my pre-staging Roanoke box of cards that don't know exactly where they go yet and haven't been indexed. And then this is my index. Half of the cards in here are index. And then the other half is bib cards and contact cards, people cards. Carrying all of that down to the room where I do this, I'm thinking, spread out on a page sounds great for at least one of those boxes. And of course, what you're saying is like the at a glance, seeing all of that. And I don't have the same qualms about straight lines. I can see how that's a real thing. I mean, you all your cards look like you only use lined cards.
Yeah, 99% anyway.
Yeah, I used lined directory cards, but everything else is unlined. Well, my index is all lines. But my main cards are not. Allows me to go squinchy.
Well, as far as my box is concerned, I tend towards chaos myself. So I don't really need to put more chaos into the box. There's plenty already. I'm usually trying to bring some order to the chaos. But one thing that I do to sort of have a directed chaos is, especially if I'm not finding anything that really fits to put a new card in, I look for, is there any place it'd be funny to put it? Or really strange? Or, like what is the most tenuous connection I can find? And sometimes I didn't take the time to pull any examples, unfortunately, but sometimes things end up, and I'm sure if some stranger were looking through and like, why is this filed after this one? What do they have to do with each other? Well, it makes sense to me.
I love that idea. Yeah, what would be funny? Or strange or whatever. It's like what that exact what the heck reaction is just what you want.
Yep.
I have yet another type of card that you didn't ask about, but I'm going to volunteer it at this point because I've become very aware of it. Many of the cards that for me had not yet been filed, and I'm now keeping a Leitner box of cards that I have not filed.
Oh,
And
interesting.
because of what it does for me is I can look through them and maybe I find, oh, this one has a home now. And I'll pull it out and it'll go in with my day's collection. This one's definitely going to get filed today. And others, well, it's still lukewarm for me, and I'll just move them. I'll just treat them like the word that I didn't get, or more like the word that is just sitting there in its slot. It's not moving. And eventually, when it's time, it's like okay, the number matches the start, so you got to move it. It'll either be back to the end of the pile of things that I haven't examined yet, or else I might turn it into scratch paper or whatever. But what I discovered in this is there's a class of cards that I don't want to throw away and I don't want to file. They are cards that have advice,
Mm.
especially very, very good advice. Because if I take something that's great advice and file it, then it just disappears. And it's my index is getting big and it's like happenstance if I'll bump into it again. If I do the traditional thing, put it on a sticky note on the bathroom mirror, it gets water spotted and it curls up and you stop looking at it. So a Leitner box is perfect for that because after a certain amount of forgetting it, you read that advice again. And it's like, that's great advice. Why haven't I implemented it yet? And
What kind now? So are you using the Leitner box for language as well?
no, not really. I'm not actively studying a language right now. I'm just using it for this as an excuse because I had this ridiculous number of cards that had not yet been filed. And so they become my pool. And then by days, they get reconsidered based on when it's time to look at it again. And it's really working for me because otherwise I would look at it and I would say, I've got probably 75 cards there that need to be filed. And it was like this guilt thing hanging on me. Whereas if I've got the 5 or 10 that I'm looking at today, well, probably one of those is going to jump out and actually get filed. And I've made progress. So what I am finding is that I'm not adding as much which is a huge benefit for me. I'm not adding to the pile of undealt with cards. It's getting worked down.
That is a
Oh, and
brilliant idea. Brilliant idea. I have to try that implementation of a Leitner box. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's craft involved.
Do tell.
Well, you gotta make the box for this. You gotta find the box. You gotta get the cards all, It's sharpening pencils.
And it can be a pretty color.
Yeah.
I haven't got involved yet lately. And if you're Victoria, you probably put stickers on it.
Yeah. There's a chicken on there somewhere.
Ooh.
Ooh.
I just went through and set up my July planner and washied the crap out of it. So it's an affliction. What are you going to do?
Yes, another thing we're waiting for, your 60 for success.
Pressure. You guys are killing me.
Well, this is a much smaller innovation than the idea of using a Leitner box as a way to work through your unfiled cards, but I want to share this one that I've just started doing, which is great. Like Kathleen, I was underlining the keywords for the taglines in the index, but I was finding as the cards fill up, it's really hard to sort of scan down and find the underlined things. It just doesn't pop out enough. So what I did was I went through and I highlighted all of them instead. Well, in addition, I'll probably still underline them as well, but having the highlighting makes it really easy it just pops right out what the keyword is.
Oh,
That's awesome. And you can do it a little bit at a time.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just keep the highlighter around and, I'm on this card now. Boop, boop, boop.
And have you found a highlighter that is pleasant and not neon and doesn't make you hate your card after you've highlighted?
Well, I can't speak for how you would feel about it. I like yellow. I don't really like the other colors of highlighter. And for yellow, neon is fine to me. But I like the Sharpie smear guard, just the standard pen-sized one, not the big chunky ones. They don't smear, at least not the ink I use, and for me, it's a very good highlighter. It's not too dark. It doesn't call too much attention to itself, but just enough. So I like it. I don't know whether you would.
Okay. And does it bleed through to the back?
No.
Okay.
I can make a suggestion, being the resident pen queen. I solved that problem with Prismacolor flesh tone brush pens. So they're dual tips. You've got a brush on one end and a pen on the other, but they're meant for artists who color different people. Obviously, you need lots of different flesh tones. But what I found is they're very subtle. They don't bleed through. I like that you have a thick and a fine tip on, either end. But that was my solution, is getting markers in flesh tones. And then I feel the same way. Sometimes I want something bold and bright, but a lot of times I just need that little bit of color to remind me of something or just subtly draw my attention. So that was how I solved that problem, because I get overwhelmed if it's just crazy color everywhere. it throws me out of what I'm trying to do because I'm trying to, oh, what's that for? What's that for? But I like those.
I'm sitting here. Oh, I'm going to Staples. Oh, I'm going to Michael's. And they're in the same shopping center.
Mel,
Yes. And they come in a little cylinder. I think there's like 20 or 30 of them, so there's quite a lot. And some get quite dark and others barely show on the page. So there really is a nice spectrum for whatever you want to use them for. And I've had those, I got those 2 years ago and I'm still using them, so they're very good quality.
Oh, and they last pretty well then. Mel,
Yeah,
can you
and
show me-
they were reasonable. Hmm?
Mel, could you show your card again? Because it didn't look super neon. Yeah, it's not crazy neon. I've got some that are crazy neon. And can you tell
Yeah,
me
I
the
don't
name of
like
that one again, please?
It's a Sharpie brand highlighter, and it says Smear Guard on it.
Sharpie Smear Guard. Thank you. Yeah, I love that idea because I agree with you. I can hold up one of these cards and it doesn't matter where I go, if it's reasonably full, you don't really see the underlines anymore.
Yeah.
Super.
Well, this has been a fun episode.
Yeah.
Arts and crafts. And
Yeah.
I think, Victoria, your system would drive me crazy because I'd have to make a choice of color.
Oh, true. Very true. I only have out the ones that I'm using at a given time. Otherwise, they live in a pen like sorting thing over in the drawer. Because if they're all looking at me, it's a problem.
So where can people go to get more ideas of things to try?
You can come on over to LiLLiPub.org. This is where we gather to do all kinds of fun things. We've got several different departments over in LiLLiPub, including the Roanoke Project, where you can get involved with how our story and see what's going on with it. And we have a circle for Zettelkasten, where you can play around with your ideas for Zettelkasten, join a Zoom call for it. And of course, Victoria leads the Fusion Writing Group, and you can get advanced hints of what's coming out in her great new book, Fiction, Zettelkasten for Fiction Writers. So come on over to lillipub.org. And don't forget Mel's site on old books. And if you want to know more about Lull, his name keeps coming up. Check out Mel's website and check out his newsletter because he's revealing all. Come on over to LiLLiPub.
Awesome. Thank
Well,
you.
see you next time.
Yep.